just published a report last week on how to build a great developer portal, and it was 10 specific practices to build something that appeal to software developers. The reason for that is because increasingly companies want to give other companies the capability to embed their technologies in their own software products. And it's not just the Microsofts and the Amazons of the world, it's the MasterCards of the world and the ESPNs of the world that are out there starting to create these business models. Now, in order to do that, you need to be able to use agile processes. Now, hopefully most of you folks are getting exposed to things like agile development, continuous delivery, the lean startup, minimum viable product thinking. If you're not, you need to make sure that you're getting that introduced into your curriculum, because it's going to be critical to becoming one of these individuals that is going to help these companies master the transition from the old model to the new model. You need, from a technology standpoint, to be able to refactor your back-end architectures to take advantage of the technology changes that are out there that are going to dramatically reduce the cost of delivery of software at these organizations. You need to be able to create a software engineering mindset to build new products. You need to have things like product owners, not folks like business analysts that are driving the successes of these businesses. And then finally, one of the biggest challenges that's happening now and is going to become even more important in the future is the ability to master the idea of context. So why is this happening now? Why not 10 years ago? Why not 20 years ago? Why not 30 years ago? My feeling is that there are a couple things that have collectively come together to create this perfect storm. Let's start with the most obvious one. This picture is taken in 2007, and it was from 2005, sorry, and it was from Pope Benedict's introduction to the world at the Vatican. What do you see? Not much of anything. You see a little flip phone down here, but a lot of people waiting for the Pope to get introduced. Let's fast forward to 2013, exact same thing with Pope Francis. Notice anything different about the two pictures? Let's just go back and forth. Yeah, I feel like I'm at a concert and someone's playing Freebird, you know? Because you got all the devices here. So people are using their mobile devices, which are now ubiquitous, and they're capturing the moment. At Forrester, this is what we call a mobile moment. They view the devices as a way to capture and use the information. Now think about all the mobile moments that you have throughout the day. How many times do you check your stock portfolio, check your schedule, check your email, text with your friends, text with your enemies? In our research, it happens about 200 times a day for those of us that live in the US. So if you take that number and you multiply it by the number of folks that have smartphone class devices in the US, that's about 30 billion mobile moments that happen every single day, and it's increasing. Now think about all the applications and all the companies that still have barely got a presence in the mobile channel. There's an awful lot of opportunity out there. When we ask companies, do you feel like you have the budget, the technology, and the skills required to deliver on your mobile strategy? 4% say yes. So the technology is creating a gap that is vast. It is essentially the equivalent of the digital Grand Canyon. And again, this creates opportunity for all of you if you can help them close that mobile gap. We see lots of need, we see billions of devices, and we see lower costs. Those all create opportunities for you. That's reinforced by the fact that we see large organizations locked into old organizational models, legacy technology, investments in barriers to entry that are crumbling. They have low skill availability, and they need to figure out what to do about that. There are two responses. They can try to redouble their effort to rebuild the barriers to entry, to try to fight back the commoditizing power that software is driving, or they can embrace it and embrace the hard change to organization, to technology adoption, to skills that they need to hire. If you can convince them to do the second part, then you can help them survive the disruption into the age of the customer. If you look at how Evernote's put together, 150 million requests a day over Apache Thrift, open source product that is designed to transmit information very efficiently. They've got multiple failover points. Every note that you take on Evernote goes on 2 servers, one of which is a primary and one of which is a secondary. If the one fails, then you just go to the secondary. They all run on Debian, Java, Tomcat, Hibernate, EHCache, Stripes, GWT, MySQL. Huge technology layer. Every single bit of it is open source. They use VM images that are replicated to other servers. That's how they do their failover. Because they have a primary and a secondary on each piece of hardware, that means that you don't have to worry about somebody else using a lot of the processing power, and so you're getting poor performance. They also will design the hardware around what the service is doing. So they have this stack of servers down here that does OCR. So if you take a picture or you scan a slide in Evernote, it'll eventually recognize all the text and convert it to text. That's what's happening in this bank of servers. So commodity hardware, open source software, it's not that big. A couple years ago, I think they were at about 90 shards. And that's what's running Evernote for everybody that's out there. Fraction of the cost of a mainframe or a set of Unix proprietary boxes that are running Oracle or some other relational database. Let's take a look at another one. Anybody here use Instagram? There we go. Popular application. Instagram went from 0 to 14 million users in 1 year. I can tell you, if I was at a large corporation that was trying to use its own data center to introduce a new service that would scale from 0 to $14 million a year, they would fail miserably because the procurement people would not be able to get new servers in quickly enough to support the load. And what they do? They ran it all on Amazon with Elastic Load Balancer, Route 53 for DNS, and Nginx, which is a really cool HTTP server. They used Python. You know, not Java, not C, Python. It's a language that anybody can learn, including me. It's really, really easy. If you haven't done any programming, Python would be a great language to look at as a potential way to learn how to program. Postgres, again, open source database. They were storing all their photos on S3, which is storage. They used CloudFront, which is Amazon CDN. Redis is a NoSQL database. So again, ton of open source. In 2012, Facebook bought them. Anybody know what the price was? $1 billion. You know how many employees they had? 13. Do the math. Not bad, huh? I could handle that. That would work for me. Let's go a little bit more modest. So your homework, if you don't already have it, and anybody like to drink beer? Okay, download this app if you like to drink beer. It's called Untapped. It is basically Foursquare for beer drinkers. I'm lagging behind some of my other peers. I've only got about 375 different varieties in it so far. You check into beer. But this was built by 2 developers working part-time just because they love beer. And they built it on top of Amazon. They use PHP, they use MySQL and Redis. They're storing all the pictures that people take of beer. People take a lot of pictures of beer when they check in. And they're storing that on S3. But they discovered a business. They discovered that distributors or brewers don't have real good data on where their beer is actually consumed because the distributors disaggregate the supply chain. So now they can take all this information they're collecting, which people are adding for free because they love telling other people that like to drink beer where they're drinking beer. They can take all this information, sell it back to the breweries. They can even drive promotions for badges, because you got to have your badges on Untapped, to get you to drink certain types of beer. They have essentially created a business where they were just doing something that they enjoyed. This is where we are now with the minimal cost of software, with the easy ability to innovate and try to test something out, to develop a business on the fly as you discover what your customers are doing with it. Apple Watch. The day the watch came out, 26% of consumers that we surveyed indicated that they expect to buy either the watch or a product like this in the future. So they're already getting to a quarter of the market. Anybody use WhatsApp? There we go. So WhatsApp is already seeing 900 million users worldwide on a daily basis use it. It's just a simple chat app. How is it any better than Facebook or Instagram or Skype or Lotus Notes or Lotus Messenger, whatever it was called, any of the 200 different chat clients that have come before? Great customer experience, free to use, lots of features, and a network effect that kicked in. These are the sorts of things that you can deliver on, and you don't have to be a 1,000-person company. You can be a 13-person organization, and you can create a tremendous amount of value. Now, even if you're a large company, what we see, we've been doing some market analysis of companies that have superior customer experience, and we measure them using a format that we use internally called the Customer Experience Index. When we look at companies with a high customer experience index, we compare them to overall Standard & Poor's performance, we see that they outperform by about 30%. And they dramatically outperform the customer experience laggards, those that have poor customer experience score, by 80%. We're in a new age, the age of the customer. Software is rebalancing the power to the customer. It's eroding barriers to entry. It's increasing the ability to substitute technology into existing markets. The way that we build apps and services from a technology perspective is changing. From a process perspective, it's changing. It's getting cheaper. It's getting faster. That creates opportunities. There's a huge skill gap out there. If you can master the connection between business and technology and understand these changes, you are going to do fine. You're not going to have a problem getting a job. You're going to make a lot of money. When by reducing the adoption risk that customers have by investing in great customer experience. That's why I have an Apple machine. I might not like the company, might not like the technology, but it's a great customer experience and the stuff just works. And then finally, don't just solve the technology problem. Make sure that you also challenge the culture of the organizations that you work at, because that's the real issue. You do all that, you'll be great. Thanks a lot.